Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Dodgeball Podcast. In this episode, we'll be recapping the events of the Elite South Region 3 tournament that took place the weekend of June 23rd. Here to help me do so, once again, is Vaughn Kelly, Joseph Chincarini, and new to the panel will be Kristy Stephens. Guys, thank you so much for hopping on again, and as always, for lending your time this evening to recap what took place last weekend. Lot to cover, so let's go ahead and get right into it, starting again with the introductions. Vaughn, why don't you go ahead and go first?
Hey again, I'm Vaughn Kelly, play for Outsiders. Just kind of play, and I reffed both Open and Co-Ed No Sting this time, along with kind of helping Tyler out with the Dodgeball Tribune articles. I didn't have much of a role in the Tribune for this round. I think Tyler's largely doing a lot of that by himself, but I did, give him some feedback on kind of how the tournament went and some of the players and things like that. So
awesome. And one thing I wanted to before we go into Joseph's introduction, anyone that reads the South recap articles, a lot of that's come from your perspective, right? You've been contributing to that mostly?
Yeah, for the previous two rounds, I had pretty big input on it. I would kind of do a write-up for Tyler and then send it off to him, and he would edit it or kind of add things as he saw fit. And so, yeah, so I had a pretty big role in it, less so this time, but the first two rounds, definitely.
Very cool. And then, so moving back to the introductions, go ahead, Joseph.
Yep, Joseph Chincarini, captain of Wrecking Balls, and just basically actually for 8.5, I chose to sit out this round. I was there, basically shagging, recording, doing some stats for the team and a few other things. We just had a lot of good things rolling for us, and I felt that was where I needed to be at that time. But it was definitely crazy. But that's and I gave Tyler a little bit of feedback as well. I think he kind of reached out to all the teams to get a little bit of feedback for this last little piece he did that he just put out today, I think, for who the MVP, things like that, were the team best catcher, stuff like that. So
very cool. And then last but not least, Kristy.
I'm the captain of Weapons of Mass Destruction, and I played co-ed with Lone Star Syndicate, and I answered some Tyler's questions too. That's about it.
Very cool. And I don't know if we ever actually covered this because we mostly stuck with just the recap, but and then starting with you, Kristy, how long have you been playing Dodgeball just altogether?
I think 6 years, but I've only been playing Elite since last Nationals, actually.
Was that your first experience?
It was. Nationals last year in Boston was my first experience with Elite.
Oh, wow. Very cool. So previous to that, just like recreational leagues or competitive or a mixture of like non-elite events?
It was Rec League in Fort Worth, and then on occasion our Rec League would take what we call the tournament team, and we would go and play in Dallas against these other guys, and we would play in their local just tournament that they had. Gotcha.
Very cool. And then Joseph, same question with you. I don't think we covered this with you either, Vaughn, so you're up next. But Joseph, how long have you been playing Dodgeball?
Oh, man, I think I'm in my 5th year. Been playing mainly with the Dallas Dodgeball League. My brother got me involved with this, and then we started Elite locally, just doing the local Elite portions here. I kind of jumped on. I played with like Balls Deep a few times, which I think is mainly Rage now. And then my first Nationals was New Orleans. And then last year I got a team together. We did pretty good last year. I think we took 4th seed, if I remember correctly. But then we had some timing issues because the date changed for Nationals, and half my team was on vacation, so we couldn't go. So we didn't go last for Boston. But everybody's going this year, so we're good for there. But yeah, it's been good.
Cool. And how about you, Vaughn?
I've been playing for about 4.5-ish years. I started in the Dallas Dodgeball League, just going to open plays and then getting involved in the foam league. My first Elite tournament was, I want to say 2015. And we took a team, and Eric Stone came down and played with us. Glenn Spacer played with us. And then after that, that I think we did. I think I did 2 rounds that year, just kind of with random teams, and then after that, we started taking kind of a team on a regular basis, going to all the rounds, and that's kind of where Outsiders and Elite came from, and we've been together ever since.
Awesome. Very cool. And when we actually do the Outsiders interview, I'll definitely ask more questions about you guys. And for anybody that's wondering where Joe Martinez is, we're saving him for that interview. So we kind of just wanted to keep this a little tight knit. And then I think Marie was out of town, but let's go ahead and get into it. And one of the first questions I have, and this might be for you, Joseph, is did the setup improve this round? Like, can you kind of explain like what the venue was like? And because I remember there was like scheduling issues and it had to get cut off a little bit early. Can you kind of comment on that?
It went great. I personally felt it went great. It was the venue was it was a high school out here in Fort Worth, South Hills area. The gym was amazing. I mean, I felt we actually they had posts for the volleyball poles to go in, and we can actually run nets across it. We were actually able to run 4 courts across the whole gym. So the women had 1 court, the open division for 8.5 had 3 courts running at the same time, and then we were actually able to run 4 courts for the co-ed no sting. So there was a lot of dodgeball. There's a lot more dodgeball that we normally don't play. Tim Poon did a lot better this time around. He did good. I'm going to give him props on that. I actually talked to him. He did really good this round. A lot, and he's still learning. He's still getting into it. I don't think he ever really ran them that much before. But there was a lot of people helping out. Nicole Chasen was running around with a trash can at one point. We were all throwing trash away and picking up. It went a lot better. It was hot. I'm not gonna lie about that. It was hot. There was I guess they turned the AC on, but it's a big gym, and I guess they turned it on like that morning or something. But it was definitely hot in there. But it's Texas. It's hot everywhere. So there's not much else to say about that.
Well, you guys don't have the dry heat, right? That we Arizonans do. You guys humidity too.
It's usually humid though.
Ugh. Never understood dry heat until I actually spent some time in the South, so I get it now. And this was in Texas then? This was Dallas, or where was this one?
It was Fort Worth.
Fort Worth.
Stevenson's husband actually lined us up. Jeremy Stevens actually lined up his gym for us, and it went really well. Very cool.
And then one of the other questions I had, so moving past like logistics and flow, and maybe you can take this one, Vaughn, like, was there a big difference in the same teams that showed up and were competitive? Was it more or less kind of like a runoff of round 2, or how would you gauge the showing this time around, just overall?
It was about the same. There were definitely some differences. We had a lot of people come out of the West: Justin Pyan, Joe Kalela, Tori. I think it's Tori Thompson is his last name.
Yeah, Tori Thompson.
Nicole Chasen came out and played in the women's division. So during Open, they kind of hopped on different teams, and for co-ed no sting, they brought Echo. But we had Stingers back. They took second in round 1, and then they weren't at round 2. So they were back. Hitman was back kind of in their more normal form. Johnny came out this time. He wasn't able to make it to round 2. But the teams were all the same, with the return of Stingers. So it wasn't too different, but there were a little bit of difference in the individual teams with the LA people coming in and filling out the rosters and stuff like that. But
Gotcha.
It was good. It was good to have them around. You could kind of see, and we can kind of get into this as we talk about Open, but just kind of some of the dynamic that the LA guys and girl brought to the table. So
gotcha. So Dan Levine wasn't trolling me when he asked about Ketchum. I thought that was like a nod, because we had that interview scheduled for about a month ago, and so I thought I was getting made fun of for not having it ready yet. But I didn't know actual LA people were going down there to play. So yeah, I'm really curious to cover that when we get into that division. And then for you, Kristy, was there much of a difference from the women's division overall? Did you guys stick with the 5-player format?
We did 5-on-5, but the teams, because just the nature of what we've been trying to build on, the only teams that brought back the exact same players was Caught Up and WMD. All the other teams had new players. They were not the same teams.
Like brand new players that haven't played previously, or just like roster changes?
A little bit of both, actually. For NOLA, they throw me something. They just had like a player who was out, so now she's back, but then they had another player absent, so they picked up another person who was a previous elite player but hasn't been playing for a while. And then we had several new teams of players that literally that was like their third day of dodgeball ever.
Oh wow. Just straight into the fray.
Yes.
Gotcha. I guess that's kind of cool that there's new people showing up. Do you think the location change impacted some of the players that didn't show up by any chance?
I mean, I think the location change just made that a lot more Fort Worth girls came. So I do think that we were at least able to add 1 to 2 more teams because of the location change.
Gotcha. Very cool. Well, we can definitely dig into that a little bit more once we get into the women's division. But cool. So it sounds like overall, consistency-wise, the competition was more or less there. Had a new injection of some Western players that we can talk about, and then it sounds like the logistics were better and more polished. So that's pretty cool. With that being said, let's go ahead and go into to open. And Kristy, were you able to like actually let me was it open and like women's concurrently, or what was the format like that like?
It was concurrently, so I have nothing to say about open because we were very busy doing our women's during their open.
Gotcha. Okay, cool. Good to know. All right, well let's go ahead and get into it then with open. And Vaughn, you probably start with this one, and just right off the bat, what team stood out the most to you this time around?
This time, for sure, at the top of that list, I'd say Stingers. You know, they came to round 1 and they took second place at round 1, and now at round 3 they came in and did the exact same thing. They took second to us in the final, and I think the reason that that's a surprise is because at round 1 there was a lot of talk of, you know, Matt Giovinco was playing with them, Kim Nguyen, who now plays with us. They didn't have either of those players, so the fact that they were able to make it back to the final and take second place without, you know, someone with Matt Giovinco's experience or Kim, who a lot of people looked at as sort of their big gun, says a lot about them as players in their own right, that they could, you know, lose those 2 guys and still make it back to the final. Outlaws is always a strong team. Those guys, you know, they stick together. They've been together for a couple years, which is kind of a rare thing in the South. There's a lot of teams that kind of shuffle from year to year. So they've been working hard. They've been, you know, they're not a surprise team. They're a consistent team, but they had a pretty good showing. Let's see. Yeah, I think that's really about it as far as the surprise teams go. Everything else was about the same, you know, Wrecking Balls, Dodgetronic, Voodoo. They were all the same. Cat 5, they had Pyan working with them, so he did a lot for them, just kind of as a player, and you could tell that after the games he was kind of giving them a little bit of coaching and some kind of mentorship and stuff. So hopefully that's something that they kind of take as a team going forward.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Dodgetronic, Supersonic, did they, if I'm reading this correctly, I'm looking at the bracket, looks like they went pretty far. They took out Category 5 just to lose to Outlaws. But that almost sounds familiar from last round. Are they like I won't say are they a good team? That's not really a good way to put it. But are they pretty consistent with what I'm showing on the bracket here? Like they make it pretty far?
Over the years, they've been pretty consistent. They're always kind of middle of the pack, anywhere from 3rd to 5th usually. So they usually place around there. They usually have pretty much the same roster. They might have 1 or 2 guys that can't travel a certain weekend and they'll fill in. But, you know, they've been mostly consistent with their players and their kind of positioning in the rankings.
Gotcha. Yeah. You just said it. You said something about middle. What was that word you just said it? It was exactly what I was looking for. Not mid-tier, but like they're They're like 3rd through 5th ish. That's where they kind of.
Yeah.
Okay.
What did I say? Middle of the road or something like that? I don't remember what
Man,
exactly
it was like
said.
not even like 30 seconds ago. I almost want to like pause and rewind it, but that's what I was looking for. It'll come back to me at 3:00 in the morning tonight. Well, how about you, Joseph? What did you notice team wise that stood out from this round?
Like Vaughn said, it was a lot of consistency. A lot of the teams came out pretty good. I mean, the question was who was the most like improved, right? Or stood out the most?
Yeah, that's gonna be a follow-on question, so you can you can piggyback off that one.
Yeah, it was. I mean, really for me, I mean, we got beat by Cat 5 in the bracket play, and I was watching them a lot through the entire Open, and with Justin being on their team, and like Vaughn said, they were doing a lot better. They were able to just communicate better. I mean, Justin was doing his thing over there. I mean, I've never played against him before. And Justin Ashby and my team played with him in the combine recently, so he kind of knew what he was getting himself into. But he made the whole team better. Deke on the right, my left, their right corner. I believe it was Deke. I can't remember his last name. He was doing a lot better than I've ever seen him do. Alex was making a few catches and just playing a lot smarter, or wasn't coming up making any mistakes. So they stood out a lot to me, especially being like an improved team. Everybody else was pretty consistent. I mean, and I don't want to talk about my own team. I felt we did really well in the open play. We only lost two matches, one being the Hitmen and one being the Stingers. I didn't think about it like Vaughn said about without Matt Giovanni and Giovanco and Kim, they still came in and took second. So that actually, if you think about it like that, that's actually really impressive. And I don't know what their situation for practices and things like that are in Florida. So, but they stood out a lot too.
Gotcha. So it sounds like, again, the West, would it be fair to say that the West players had a little bit of an impact on the teams overall that they played with?
Justin took us all out in one round on the bracket play, and he sent us to the losers bracket.
Well, that's an impact then.
So he took like three or four people out before he got hit out, and then we had to fight to stay in it. We got one more. I think we got one round off of that, and then it was like the same thing. So that definitely made an impact. Like I said, Cat 5 had never beat us in any of this Open this year or any of the other stuff. So it was, definitely kind of, we had to come in. We had to actually go into Outlaws immediately after that. So it was like, and then that was another close fight there. So we went 1-for-1, and then the Outlaws got it on us. We thought we had them, and then we made a couple of mistakes right there at the end, and they came back on us. So that's dodgeball. So
right, yeah, just a couple mistakes away from being sent home.
Mm-hmm.
You mentioned earlier before we started recording that you managed to take one off of Outsiders, right, during round robin.
You got one off of Outsiders and Outlaws in the open play. So that was we hadn't beat them in the series, and round 1, 2, or 3, we hadn't beat we've been struggling beating Outlaws or playing Outlaws, and they were always close to. I mean, I don't think we may have got, I think 2-0 once by Outsiders, but I don't think that had happened other than that. But this was the first time we were able to play really good and went into it, and we played them. I think we played them right off the back too in the series. I think our first game was. I think it was like Cat 5 or something. Actually, hold on. I had the thing here. The first game was actually, let's see here. Yeah, we played Cat 5, and then we took a break, and then we went right to like Outlaws, and then or Stingers, and then right into Outsiders. So I mean, we were playing some pretty competitive teams right out the gate. So, I mean, everybody was doing really competitive, but it's nice to. When we can get one off of outside. We've been playing them for a long time. I've been playing against Vaughn. I guess we actually started in the same league at the same time. So I've been playing against him for a while, and Joe's been there for a while. Scott, Jake, they've all been in there. So it's, there's definitely some emotion in it sometimes. I think Rozzy came up to me. One of my teammates came up to me. He was like, Jake was throwing exceptionally hard. So, we're here to win, and they're here to win, so we just got to play it out.
So it's good to get that little bit of a I guess like a rivalry type of victory between you and outsiders.
Yeah.
Gotcha. And then Vaughn, I don't want to stir the pot, but like once that happened, did that impact your guys' play moving forward, or because you guys had a pretty solid, consistent showing for the entire series? Is it just something you guys like kind of walked off and just continued your way, or did that impact you at all?
No, it didn't really impact us at all. After that, we kind of regrouped and just kind of talked about the game itself. But we usually have one, maybe two bad games in a tournament, and one of those was two wrecking balls, and it wasn't necessarily a bad game. We just we made a few throws that just went right in the gut, and wrecking balls, made the catches, and they were just bringing people in, and they churned through it long enough to knock us off. But we're like I said, we usually have a bad game or two, and we're used to that, and we know how to regroup from it. So it didn't throw us off too much. Luckily it happened in round robin and not in bracket play. Whenever we have a bad game in bracket play, that's when it kind of becomes more of an oh crap moment. Now our backs are against the wall, but in round robin it's a lot easier to kind of shake it off and keep moving
and kind of adjust as needed.
Yeah.
Gotcha. The reason why I asked that is because there was, when I interviewed the team GOAT a couple nights ago, they mentioned that there was one loss that they had that was almost like crippling. It was hard for them to kind of recover from. They had to kind of regroup, and so I was just curious to see if when you lose to like a local team, for lack of better words, if that has the same impact on you, especially since again you guys took all three rounds. I did want to ask, did the combine have any? This might be a weird question, but did the combine have like any impact on you guys? Like, did you participate in the combine? Maybe that I might want to start there.
I did, and I was definitely kind of leading into Saturday. I was still kind of feeling it in my shoulder a little bit, because the Saturday previous we'd had the combine and we'd just been going all day, and I was just throwing, whether we were scrimmaging or running drills or whatever we were doing. So that whole week kind of leading up to round three, I was still feeling it in my shoulder. My body the soreness in my body had kind of gone away by that point, but I was, going into round three, I was kind of worried about my arm, how it would hold up playing all day, especially with 8.5. But it worked out. I don't know if maybe it was adrenaline took over or what it was, but it was fine. Leading up to that, though, it was definitely something that was in the back of my mind and that I was a little concerned about.
What did it have like a mental impact on you at all? I mean, because imagine, because I listened, because Ketchum kind of gave me a rundown of how it went down, and you're playing with and potentially against the nation's best to represent Team USA. So I wondered, did that impact your mentality? Did it make balls come slower to you, or did it put you at a higher level for round three?
Yeah, I think so. I think it gave kind of our whole team a little bit of a confidence boost. So at the combine, just from outsiders, we had Mikey, Elijah, Jake, Scott, me, and Cody Stidham. So we had 6 of our players at the combine, and knowing that 6 of our players are good enough to be invited to something like that, I think is a big confidence boost going into any tournament. And it certainly was for Elite, knowing that we are some of the best, and some of the fewer who were chosen to participate at the combine. So it's definitely a good thing to know that we have that kind of quality of players all on the same team, and it definitely helps mentally.
Gotcha. Kind of reinforce the we can hang mentality moving forward.
Yeah.
Sure. Well, speaking of players, I'm just going to start with the one that I'm hearing about is Elijah Hashimoto. How was his performance during round three?
He was solid. He's always pretty consistently good. He's he's one of the younger guys. He's only 16 right now, and he started playing when he was 11. And I've seen him for most of those years. I've seen him play, so I've kind of seen him grow as a player. And And now that he's getting a little older and he's getting stronger and he's able to throw the balls harder and stuff, it's really good, and it's really great to see him kind of rounding out his game and coming into his own. But he was solid. He played in the corner for us just like he did in round 2. He was there on the counters, or if he was throwing at the line, he had I don't remember exactly how many catches he had, but he definitely had some. So he kind of did a little bit of everything. And I think, for him, being at the combine is a big deal. It's a big deal for all of us, but him being as young as he is and being around that kind of caliber of player, the guys that he played with at the combine, it's a big confidence boost. And I think it's something that he's going to keep feeding off of as we go into nationals and just kind of next year as outsiders and the other regionals and stuff.
God, man, can you imagine coming in now at 16, just 10, 15 years of competitive dodgeball ahead of you. Must be nice. But aside from him, how about were there any other players that you might have noticed that stuck out or drastically improved from round 2?
Yeah, for sure. On our team, like Joseph said, Jake was throwing real hard. Jake's really gained some strength with 8.5 in the last year. He's throwing harder. He's making smarter moves. He's not as I don't know if wild is the right word, but he's learned to kind of harness it to his advantage and make teams, make moves that they weren't making against him in previous years. So he's learned to kind of play his own sort of chaotic game, but it works within our system. And like I said, he's throwing harder. He's become like a better catcher. Cody Stidham actually had a pretty good day in 8.5 with us. A lot of times Cody will take kind of a back seat in 8.5, and then he'll kind of come out a little more in no sting. But this time he just came out the full day and played really well. Stingers had a couple guys. Jacob Stewart played really well. He had a lot of really big catchers for them. It seemed like every time I was reffing their game, he had a big, a big catch, whether it was like a fingertip catch or just something that turned the game around. Trey Fatzinger, he was new this round. He didn't play round 1. When he was playing Outlaws, he took out probably 5 or 6 of their guys by himself in bracket play. So he had a really, and I actually didn't realize how good he had played until I was going back watching the live stream. So he did well. Let's see. Pine did really well playing with Cat 5. He won a lot of games for them, and also did a lot of good coaching with them and talking.
So Pine is being Pine, but he's also being kind of like a mentor / coach / more than just showing up to play, basically.
Yeah, for sure.
That first Jake you mentioned, what was his last name? If you
Jake Hebert.
Hebert? Yeah,
Hebert.
Gotcha. Hebert. Cool. Let's see. How about you, Joseph? What players did you notice that really brought their A game or improved from round 2 that you can kind of comment on?
Jake, Cat 5, Alex was doing really good. Let's see what else I got here. Notes. Hitman, they didn't have Johnny in round 2, so Johnny being there in round 3 was actually made a big difference for them. They had another strong player on the court with them. Carlos was doing pretty good in Carbon, Montoya. The Stingers, the whole team to me, Stingers, I knew there was one new guy, but the whole team was doing really well. We just, when we played them, it was very difficult. And I heard some of the other teams that were talking about it, like Outlaws, they beat Outlaws, and I know they beat a couple other teams, and they were just having a hard time trying to figure out weaknesses and things like that. They're solid. They have a good defense. They play good offense. Everything went really good with them there. Dodgetronic was missing Riley, but the rest of the team still held up pretty good. They got to where they got. Eli, Mikey were doing good. Jake. There's a bunch of people. I know from my team personally, Raziel Sanchez.
Yeah, I was gonna say, looks like him and Justin Ashby got a mention for best catcher.
Well, Justin, we put in that
overall.
note there. They asked who the team's best catcher was for the season, and Justin was leading into round 3. Razi basically caught everything he possibly could in round 3 and caught up to Justin. I keep stats on the team as best I can. He had let's see here, catches, about 10 catches. And then another like 22 kills on top of that. So he was killing it for round 2 or for round 3. The first round and second round, he was pretty quiet. I actually think if he had been playing like this the entire season and when we went to Minnesota, he probably would have been another contestant that probably would have gotten into the combine. Justin and Nick got in. But he's just kind of a chill guy. And for whatever reason, playing in Fort Worth this week, the past weekend or whatever, he was – nothing was getting by him. And then we moved him to a corner spot versus being in the middle too. So he did really good. Really, really good. It kind of opened up our whole team. Justin didn't have to work as hard to maintain the team.
So there's like an even spread of contribution across the team.
Yeah, spread the work labor. Usually we used to kind of crowd them all on one side and people just got to take out the one side. Now with him being in the corner, it definitely opened up our gameplay a little different. It definitely just opened his eyes. He was doing really well.
Yeah, I agree with that. Usually with Wrecking Balls, a lot of teams will focus on Justin and Nick, and Razi came in this time and played the best tournament I've probably ever seen him play. He had a lot of catches, that I saw. And obviously, I didn't see all of them. I was pretty impressed by it. Yeah, he did really well.
Very cool. Kind of wanted, mostly because it was brought up again in the thread, and that's of course Adrenaline Rush, and then just looking at the outcome of this series. I mean, the question is like more or less, what impact would have Adrenaline Rush had they played? And I mean, that's hard to tell. The thing is, like, they weren't there, so I can't really speak for them. Who knows? But I don't know if you have any comments on that, Vaughn, because did you have a chance to look at the thread, some of the questions that were asked regarding that, or?
Yeah, I saw it. It's hard to say. Adrenaline Rush has kind of been at the top for so long, but there's definitely more competition this year than there has been in the past year. So it's hard to say if they came back out, how they would fare. I know we're definitely we're definitely at the top right now, and I think we still would be if they came out, but you never really know, especially with them, with Troy coming back from his ACL injury and him maybe not being as mobile as he has been in the past. It's hard to say, but I think they would still be a strong contender. But
yeah, it's like not only that, but they say they came back in round 3. You guys have 2 rounds on top of them, so you're more I don't want to say more experienced, but a little more battle hardened than versus coming into like the 3rd round where every team's found the rhythm. So it's a curious, what if. But when Nick Factorian asked that question, I responded with a GIF of The Rock saying it doesn't matter, because who knows, right? They could have come in and dominated, or they could have come in and just completely, got dumped on. But if people want to know what happened to them, and I'll repeat it for this episode as well, just reach out to Tim Poon and find out. But I think once Troy said that he had a ACL tear, that kind of impacted the team really, really badly. But
had they shown up to round 3, at that point, we'd already won 2 rounds. Outlaws had a 2nd and a 3rd place finish already. So even if they would have come out and taken 1st in round 3, I'm not sure that it would have changed the series much, because everyone else has already, amassed enough points that they wouldn't be able to really catch up. So
for sure,
Troy did show up to a what's it called, the trampoline practice just before the qualifier here, and played for a little bit. I don't know how he did. I was on a different trampoline setup when he was playing, but I know he didn't stay the whole time, but he did show up. So he is, he's moving.
He's getting back into it.
How well his mobility is, but he got on a trampoline for a little bit.
Yeah, he was originally slated to be on our UDC team, and so yeah, he came out to the practices we had leading up to the qualifier. And for the first half hour, he actually held up pretty good. He was moving well, he was throwing well. Coming back from an ACL injury and jumping on a trampoline is probably not the easiest thing to do. So that lasted for about half an hour, and then after that, you could tell he was just kind of done. Like he couldn't really move a lot. He left the practice. He was like, I can't keep going. Like it's just too much. So I think he's still definitely recovering from it.
Well, thank God he's bowed out and didn't tough it out like some of the younger kids will do and potentially make it worse. I'm hoping that he's going to give it its due diligence and recover and just get back out there next year, because that's a tough thing to recover from. Because I do want to save Sergio's question for overall later, but I did want to ask, and that's Justin Bausch's question, would it be safe to say or fair to say that the West invasion changed any outcomes? I want to say it didn't, just looking at this bracket, but I don't know if you want to speak to that real quick, Vaughn, before we move on to women's.
Yeah, I don't think it changed any of the outcomes. I think everyone was a little eager to prove that we're better than kind of people say we are. So I think a lot of people stepped it up too. It definitely changed, like I said, it definitely changed some things with Pine's coaching or whatever it was. But as far as the outcomes go and the results, I don't think it changed much. I think a lot of people were hungry to show that we're not as terrible as kind of everyone talks about. And hopefully we kind of showed that to those guys, and we can start getting a little more, a little more credit for the way we play dodgeball here. I mean, we're certainly not the West. We don't have as many teams, we don't have as many players, we don't have as many years experience, but we're not as bad as a lot of people say we are, and hopefully we kind of showed that.
For sure. Well, I mean, and that's why I kind of wanted to start this podcast with any insight that we're getting from the Tribune coming from you guys. I hope that continues and we get more of a voice and more of a who's who, because I'm just always going to be West Coast biased. I've played with these guys for over a decade, so it's easy for me to draw upon memories and experience and tell you, who ate what on what date. But getting to know you guys more has been a lot of fun, and hope it continues. But we'll find out nationals, right? I mean, that's the proving ground for everybody.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, let's go ahead and go into women's, and kind of like a follow-on question, Kristy. Obviously, you can't really speak too much for the LA invasion impacting the game, or the LA invasion. But did Nicole Chasen play for women's? And can you kind of speak to that a little bit from your experience?
Yeah, Nicole played with Southern Glory this round, and she definitely impacted that team. Now, they only brought back Marie and Kathy this round from the previous rounds and had a couple of new additions, but it definitely helped their game. And Nicole playing with us in general helps us, because Nicole, just as a person, naturally, she always is giving advice and giving strategic, thoughts, and is very encouraging to women in general.
Gotcha. So kind of like Pine, kind of just helping out and coaching and just doing more than showing up and playing in a different region.
Yeah, I mean, this is probably something very little people know, but when I told you I only started at Nationals last year, and when I was there, my teammate Alicia Ellis there at Nationals got an injury, a freak accident, walking by, got a black eye, and Nicole actually subbed in on our team to help us out through round robin, and she just started giving us advice not just as how to play as a female in co-ed, but how to build a female league and how to get more players to play. And so she's actually had quite an impact on the South, maybe not as directly as she would like to take credit for, but indirectly, she gave us some advice that we came back and used. So we're always happy to have her around, because we give a lot of credit to her for what's happening in the South right now.
That's very cool. So she's got a little bit of a history then, and not just that one weekend of interacting with you guys and playing and being a presence. Well, I guess we can go into some of the other questions that I had, and then Vaughn, Joseph, I'm assuming you guys didn't really get a chance to check out much of the women's division.
Yeah, I didn't get to see a lot because we were playing open kind of concurrently, but I did keep up with Marie and asked her how they were doing, and I was able to kind of watch when I wasn't reffing or playing, and I got a lot of info from her too, so I might be able to add a little bit, but we'll see.
Okay, cool. Well, I guess so. The first question I would have for you then, Kristy, is what teams stood out the most for your division that you noticed?
I mean, obviously, the teams that have been the most consistent caught up WMD, Throw Me Something, and Southern Glory. They, just as they have other previous rounds, had a good showing. I was mostly impressed, though, with Cannons. They were a team that was put together like maybe a week and a half before we started, and I literally put them together, so it's not like they chose each other, and they ended up, we can talk about seeding later, but they ended up seeding second and taking fourth place. But for being a team that has never played Elite, all the players never played Elite, and they had one practice with us. They came to practice with my team. They did phenomenally well. I was really proud of them.
How so when you say that you put them together, how did that work out, or how did that come to be?
So the way we've all been doing this is that it just takes like, okay, we're gonna do 5-on-5, 6-on-6. Who wants to play? We kind of shout out to all the girls in our area, and once you get one or two players, then you start filling teams, and then it never fails. Well, luckily, it doesn't fail that you might need one or two players, but then 4 answer. Well, now you have 2 extra girls. So, the way we see it is we've got to find more to add with the 2 instead of just saying, oh, sorry, we're good. And so this was a team of girls who half said that they wanted to play, and then the other half we recruited at our local league and said, hey, why don't you come out and play with us this weekend? And of course, it was easier that it was here in Fort Worth where we already play. So it's like they didn't have to travel. And so when I say I put them together, it's just that I was the one who coordinated them all together and said, okay, you guys should play as a team. Y'all know each other. They did know each other from our local league. And I made some suggestions about captains, and they kind of ran with it from there on out.
Awesome. Well, it sounds like you contributed to a pretty impactful team. You said that you didn't want to get into seeding, but they took second. I don't get into, okay. So this time, and it might have happened it might have happened around 2 that I'm not aware of, but I kept score all 3 rounds. I kept score of all the games. And this time when we heard how everybody seeded, I was confused because the way I had it would have been almost opposite. And so I tried to question it, and I looked at the score that they had, that Tim had, and it matched up with mine, but we were being rushed because I actually was supposed to play the very first match. So I didn't get to figure out what happened. Once we got going, we realized that Tim was scoring it differently than we had previously been scoring it, but I heard later he said he scored it the same in round 2. I'm not sure of that. I have no idea. I'm not going to go back and look. But the way we ended up seeding was almost opposite. So I don't know if this makes sense, but if we had been doing what I thought we were doing previously, for example, my team would have seeded this round in 3rd spot, but instead we seeded 6th. And Gotcha.
So Cannons, as far as I had them, would have seeded 4th, but they seeded 2nd. That's why I said I don't know how to say it. It's confusing.
Gotcha. So I won't say like maybe like a discrepancy, but could potentially have been a different outcome if the seeding was on par with how you were tracking it. Is that what you're saying?
Yes. I truly believe that the only team that probably suffered from what I think was different than the other rounds was Southern Glory, actually. I think Southern Glory was probably the only team that really suffered because they seeded 1st place. No matter which way you do it, they seed 1st. They were undefeated. They did amazing during full play. However, I think the reason why it affects them is that I don't think that, I'm just using logic. I know anything can happen in dodgeball, but with the seeding being the way we see it is almost backwards, they had to play pretty much one of the top 4 teams, or top 3 teams, you could even say it, per the ranking of Tribune, back to back. Whereas maybe if the seeding had been done the way it's been done, I thought previously, they would have had at least one more round before they would have faced some of those more seasoned teams.
Gotcha. Yeah, I'm not too keen on seeding, but generally, like, the first seeded team plays one of the lower seeding ones.
Right.
So I think I get where you're coming from.
Mm-hmm.
Vaughn, did you pick up on any of that through Marie, or do you have any comments on how that went down by chance?
So whenever the bracket was being made, I saw that there was kind of a big hoopla around Tim. Nicole chasing it and Tim were talking about it, and she was kind of explaining to him how the seating should work, and he had a different perspective. I don't know exactly how that went down. I know that he was counting wins and losses for a certain amount of points, and she was saying, well, no, you can't count the losses for points, because then the teams that 2-0 get less points than the teams that have a loss. Like I said, I don't know exactly how it went down. I know that they went around about it for a little while,
right?
And they were gonna redo the bracket, but they'd already played one round of bracket play, so then that wouldn't have been fair to the other teams that had already played. So they decided to just keep going with it. I don't have a lot of detail. I didn't fully understand it myself, but yeah, there definitely was a big ado about it.
Gotcha. What were you gonna say, Kristy?
Well, I can explain. So basically, the other rounds, for every win, you get a point, and then that's it. This round, Tim explained it to me because I was confused. It was he gave 2 points for every win, and for every loss, you got 1 point. So that meant then, like my team, we only lost 2 matches, and we lost them 0-2, and we won everything else 2-0. So if we did it the way where you just count wins, my team would have seeded 3rd. However, with Tim's way, I seeded 2nd to last.
Huh.
Because we never went to 3 matches. So
yeah, he seeded
3 games.
Round 2 like that as well. So I kind
of said that. He said that. And that's what I was going to say. It could have just been a coincidence, because when I was counting it during round 2, I was doing it the same way we did round 1, which is just wins. Obviously, I got the same he did, so that could have just been a coincidence that time. I don't know. Like I said, I didn't notice it until it was just when they read out the seating, we were all confused because, like, specifically, me and Caught Up, the way, if it had been my way, I guess, or the way I thought we were doing it, Caught Up would have been in 2nd seed, and I would have been 3rd, but instead we were in 6th and 5th, which meant we played the very first match. We actually got in 2 matches deep because Nicole was adamant that Tim was incorrect in that. I really didn't know, and I didn't have time to look it up because I had to play. But because we got,
it's not in the rules. I haven't
which
been
isn't
finding it.
Which part?
The scoring.
I mean, like I said, I let it go because Vaughn was correct. What had happened was, by the time that they're discussing it, we were 2 matches into the bracket, so it was kind of pointless. We had to just move on. Right. In the future, obviously, I learned a captain, rookie move maybe say, hold up, pause, and look it up and question before we start.
Definitely. Is the seeding process, is that the same for open and no sting?
Well, yeah, it should be exactly the same. It's just he did the scoring like this. We ran into this last round 2 because we had like teams in the no sting division we were running that went undefeated, but there was rounds and then points or something that caused to have some seeding issues where, I mean, everybody was like, this team went undefeated, but they're seated under this other team that had 2 losses, but it was because essentially if you 2-0 somebody, you would only get 4 points. But if you lost a round and then so you won 2, but you lost 1 round, you'd wind up with 5 points.
Mm-hmm.
So you actually potentially could win. Now, according to Tim, and I after round 2, I went back and read the rules, and I couldn't find anything on the scoring in the actual rules that we currently have. But he says that's how they've always done it, and the season elite players that I do have there didn't say anything otherwise. So that's all I got to go with. And
interesting.
Someone said they had reached out to Mark or something. I don't know if they actually did or not, but that's what we were going with.
Gotcha. Well, I'll have to. So we got round 3 for the West coming up next weekend. I'm gonna ask Jake Mason about that, just because I've never ever. I don't care about seeding or stats. Just tell me where to go and when to show up, and it's like a foreign science to me, so I don't even bother. I'm just like, okay, cool, we got 5th, great, fantastic, we're good. But I'm curious now. I want to know like how that plays out, and
it was for like tiebreakers. It's supposed to help with tiebreakers. Like, so if you have a team that has the same winning record as another team, you can go back and look. Oh well, the points are what's going to separate them because they went X amount of rounds or whatever.
Yeah, for sure.
And even I think we still wound up with, in our co-ed nosting, we still wound up with like a 3-way tie for last, and then a 2-way tie for like the middle teams.
Gotcha. What were you gonna say, Kristy?
I mean, I would be interested to know how it's supposed to be, only because strategically speaking, not that I would be like this, but you could see why it would be a benefit then to, I don't know, throw a game, because then you could get 5 points versus 4. I'm not trying to be like that, but it is interesting, and it's just interesting to know because we're so new. This is the first time having a women's thing. I didn't know, but I could see now maybe how different teams would do different things when we travel or otherwise. I don't know.
Gotcha. Huh. Well, yeah, that'll be interesting. And I wonder if there'll be more conversation about that. And then just moving forward, what's actually in the rules and what's the actual practice. But so going back to, I think the team that kind of started that little segue was, you had mentioned like Cannons it was a brand new team. They did really well. I want to say like despite their seed, because it looks like they got pretty far. You said they took 4th. Am I looking at that right?
Yes. Yeah, they took 4th. And like I said, even if we had done the other seeding, they still seeded high. Either way, they did great. And then they ended up taking 4th place. And so, that's why I was saying hats off to them. They weren't even a team for about a week and a half, had 1 practice, and they did great.
Already making a name for themselves. Do you think they'll stick around for future elites, or?
I think that because of how well the men and the women treated the new players, I think that most of these women are going to come back and continue to compete in the future. Awesome. They really enjoy themselves, and I don't know that the teams will all look the same as they did, because this season of rounds for us wasn't about maybe dominating or picking teams that were just going to go out there and kill it. It was about growing. And so that was always kept in mind. So I don't know that the teams will look the same, but I do think the players will come back.
Yeah, I mean that's always that's always critical, right? You want new teams, and you want them to come back. You want them to help grow the sport, and especially coming from round 1 where it was 4v4, now it's 5v5, and hopefully next year it'll be 6-on-6, and there'll be a lot of returning teams and new players. But going back to like the competitive aspect, I was looking at the previous bracket, and it looks like it was kind of like the reverse, right? You guys had to play caught up for the championship. They took it last time, but you guys took it this time.
Yes.
What'd you guys do differently, if you can recall?
I'll be honest. In the last round, we maybe my team, WMD, got a little too hyped up, I would say, and we would spend all of our energy during the round robin. This time, we strategically said, you know what, we're going to play our game, we're going to work some kinks out, but let's chill during round robin, because what matters is once we get into bracket play, and let's play our game then. So we kind of played a more calm team game. But when we got to the finals, we weren't spent this time. In the past, we would get there and we'd be so spent because we just played all these games. And because we don't have as many teams as the guys, we're playing a lot of dodgeball quickly. It's almost constant. And so my team was a little bit more, we weren't as gassed. Not to mention that because our teams are so small, we had a couple of injuries that hindered some things in the past too. So this time I feel like the biggest difference between us playing caught up in the finals this time was more we weren't spent and we were a little healthier.
Do you guys like do practice or conditioning in the off season, or just you kind of went in with that mentality of let's coast during round robin and not go crazy off the get-go?
So we actually have been practicing, and we've had practices as a team throughout these rounds, but we've also practiced all the women together with like Vaughn and Joe and Cody helping us all out. So we've done a mixture. We've practiced together, all girls, and then we've also practiced as a team, both.
Nice. Very cool. And I'm looking at the power rankings for the South Region article that came out through the Tribune, and it was saying that you got best catcher. Is that more like your role, or was that just something that happened during round 3, or can you speak to that a little bit? Just kind of toot your own
I'll
horn,
be honest. Yeah, sure. I'll be honest. I think I'm actually probably a middle player. And when I went to the combine, I was told that. But I asked some of the West players. I'm kind of forced because we have a lack of seasoned competitors at this point in the South. We'll get there, but right now I'm having to play a wing. But I suspect that I probably am not a wing, based just on the way I have learned as we've traveled and played with other regions. And some of the West girls told me that they thought I also was not a wing. I was probably more of a middle player, a little bit more prone to catch and do some of those things. So I catch the most on my current team, but I'm having to play a wing. So I don't know.
What is a wing? So you got like right corner, wing, and then center? Is that what a wing is?
Well, when we're playing 5, then we'll have our 2 throwers in the wing position on the left and the right side. And then depending on your team, on my team, I have another backup wing player next to me. And then we have what I would call our 2 middle players then in between us.
So wing is
5v5 is weird because it's not a thing.
Right.
It's a
like
adjustment, I guess.
It's not your official 6v6, but
right. So it's odd.
Is it still is wing like corner player or corner position?
Right.
Okay, gotcha.
Just the people on the very far ends, left and right side both. They're typically the best throwers, or at least they have been for 5v5.
Okay, makes sense. Yeah, I wonder if there's actually gonna be position names being established sooner or later. And then your team MVP. What's that, Vaughn?
Right.
I was just going to say, some people are real sticklers for the terminology.
I know.
I will say, though, Kristy, as far as best catcher goes, I've seen, Kristy's really good at maybe making a throw at the line and then catching the counter or catching on the back pedal. I've seen her do that a lot. So I think that's where a lot of her catches come from is if she's being countered, she'll square up and catch one or on the back pedal headed back to the line. So, yeah, I mean, she's really good at that. So I think she's probably right. I think she is probably more naturally a center player because of those things where she can kind of go up in the middle and throw and then catch, almost immediately. But I think she's good in the corner too. She's been strong for her team. So
nice.
She's probably one of the most daring.
Yeah, I was gonna say, are you more like a more aggressive?
Knocked us
player?
Out of the tournament, on a couple of catches. So in a local tournaments here. So. I always tell guys, if you see a girl playing dodgeball, don't ever take it easy on them. And Kristy sails out and dives after stuff and lands on her face and comes back out with the ball. So if you ever need a spot, we always need another girl. So
nice. Poaching going on right now as we're talking. That's awesome.
That's what it is.
Very cool.
Take that up with Cody.
Hope he's listening to this. Well, cool. I did want to ask about one more player that you could probably speak to, and that was Jen Woodley. Got collective team MVP.
I mean, yes. So she's never played Elite until these rounds. And I'm so proud of her because I told her, she actually originally, me and her started rec seasons together many, many years ago. And she started a couple seasons after me. And originally our little first rec tournament team that would go out and play against Dallas, she was originally on it. And then she took some years off or I don't even know if it was years, a couple seasons off, I don't know, for work. But then when she came back, she's a very good competitive driver. She already had natural skill and talent. And I, along with some other females, told her, hey, we're going to do this. This is our goal. And she really took to it. She joined every dodgeball league that there was to do, playing in Fort Worth and in Dallas, and trampoline. Like any dodgeball there is to be had, she's been doing it. She went with us to Vegas. She's been with us to Minnesota. Anywhere we went, she went. And she's really done such a great job. I mean, already she has natural talent, but she's really applied herself to learn, strategy and just everything there is. And so I couldn't be more proud of her. And she even got invited to go to the combine and did a great job. And so I'm super proud of her.
Very cool. Yeah, it's always great when you have somebody that's willing to tag along and put the work in and make all the events, and just watch them like progress in level of competition. Were there any other players that you might have noticed, either with your team or just from across the court during that day, during the tournament?
I mean, sure. From my team, I definitely feel like Alicia Ellis stepped her game up from round 2 to round 3. She played a very strategical game and was able to definitely help us get the big W and do better. Deanna Darns had like some very well-timed catches that were game-changing. I also want to give a little special shout out to Stephanie Parker. She's probably not somebody that very many people know. This was her literal 3rd day of dodgeball ever.
Wow.
That she came out there after we are having our very first women's no sting league in Fort Worth right now, which has also helped us obviously gathering girls to come to Elite. And she had only gone like 2 nights of like that league and came out here, and she has a cannon, and she did so good. And she was definitely a little intimidated, but she did so great. And also, oh my goodness, I don't know her real name because we call her Mo. Monique something. Sorry, Mo. She came out and okay.
Joseph's on it.
Yep, there you go. Mo is not even a dodgeball player. Like, she's actually just a friend of Jen's who's been adopted by all the rest of us as our friend. She takes pictures and she comes for fun. But we needed an extra girl. And so Jen, without even asking her, I think, said she'll play. Well, she came out and had a really strong showing. Very competitive player. Definitely shows some athletic ability. Had a great arm. I don't remember which co-ed team she played with, but whoever she did, it was a year. Okay, yeah, I see. Okay, I'll let him talk about that game. But she did fantastic for not even being a quote unquote real dodgeball player. And then one other person is just Juana from Caught Up. She definitely had more heat on her ball. She's already a great player all around. She catches, she's smart, everything. But for whatever reason, in round 3, she had a whip, and it was kind of shocking. I mean, I definitely got smacked in the chest at least once and was like, whoa, okay, girl, hey, what's up?
They had something on it.
Yeah.
Nice. She was only because she's been brought up a few times. Was a Beverly Rivas there for this round that you can recall?
No, I don't know who that is.
Gotcha. I think because she was a former LA player that's playing in the South, and I think she was mentioned in round 1 and round 2, but I might have to go back and rethink that one.
I know Danny Kennedy was one of the girls from the World Dodgeball Society. I don't know if maybe that's who you're thinking of, but that's the only West player that I can think of that's out here now.
Gotcha.
I don't know her past, but Marissa Bajon, I don't know her last name. She was a West Coast player before, but I don't know how deep. And I think there's also Stephanie Horan. We're also West Coast players in the past of some sort.
Gotcha. Yeah, just like that, whatever that word was that Vaughn mentioned, it's gonna come to me in the middle of the night. Like, I know exactly what I was talking about. Mid-tier, and I'll Slack you guys or message you or whatever. But well, before we move on to co-ed, Vaughn, did you have any input that Maria had given to you, or that you can speak of that we might not have covered team or player wise for the women's division?
No, I think we pretty much covered it. I think Kristy did a great job of recapping that for us. There was, like she said, there were a lot of new girls and a couple new teams. Kristy, who was on the Cannons team? I don't specifically remember seeing them, but I didn't get to watch many games. So,
Alicia, well, we call her Asian Alicia. I cannot say her last name. Hong. And then there was Stephanie Parker, Katrina Hillman. Man, now I'm a fill-in spot. Who's on the team? Oh, Megan Brown. And there's one more. What am I missing?
Yeah,
Myra, the catcher, Myra.
Okay. Actually, yeah. Now that you mention the names, I do remember seeing them. I just didn't know their team name, I guess. But yeah, there were a lot of new girls, and it was a great look. I think we actually did have enough girls this round to have a 6-on-6. But I know the New Orleans girls. I don't know if they just couldn't find 6 players to travel or what it was, but I know with the rest of the Fort Worth girls, there were definitely enough for 6-on-6, and I think next year it'll definitely be 6-on-6, and
Awesome.
And people start rounding out their teams a little more, and it'll be a little more competitive and a little more structured. So
now they got a taste, and it's something to build off of. Very cool. I did want to ask one more thing. I'm looking at that article again, and just out of curiosity, can anybody speak to Vanya Zafra, just because it says Happy Feet as her nickname?
I mean, what's there not to say? I call her Happy. I know it's Happy Feet, but I love Happy. She's a great competitor, a great catcher. She's also really great for women because she is encouraging to others. She's fun to be around. All the things you need to have in a person to bring in more girls, she's got.
Nice.
Yeah, I don't quite know where the name Happy Feet came from. Ever since she kind of joined Dallas Dodgeball League, that's like been her name. So I don't really know what's behind that. But yeah, she's great. She's a lot of fun. She's very nice. She'll catch anyone, men, women, it doesn't matter. She's got great hands. She actually had a double catch against outsiders at one of the rounds last year. It was pretty sweet.
Nice.
There's a video of it floating around somewhere, but she's got great hands, and she's starting to round out her game a little more. But yeah.
So does she dance at all? Like I'm thinking like little Happy Feet.
I don't know where the name came from. Like he said, when they came into Dallas Dodgeball, it was Juan Sasso, Francisco Rodriguez. What's his last name? Not Rodriguez. Curl. Lupe is Spike. Juan is Shank, and then Vanya was Happy Feet.
All right.
And Yoshi's Yoshi. And that's how they came in the Dallas Dodgeball. That's their names. We didn't know their real names for a little bit. But they all went to the local high school in that area. So it's a like left field area near the airport. That's where they all went to school together. But I think Juana was a little bit outside of that or whatever. But they all came in as one big group, and they all had their names. So they're all high school names for them. Their pet names or whatever you want to call it.
So this goes past and beyond dodgeball then.
Past dodgeball, yeah.
Gotcha. All right. Very cool. Well, all right. If you think that's a pretty good coverage of women's, we can go ahead and move into co-ed no-sting. And I was giving you a hard time for this, Vaughn, because I thought I'd figured out all divisions, but no-sting this time was co-ed. That's new, right?
Right. Yeah. And we've been changing divisions pretty quickly this season, so it's a little hard to keep up with if you don't live here.
Yeah, you made me feel like I don't remember anything when we talk.
Yeah, we had co-ed for the very first time for round 3, so I think that's kind of the look that we're going to have going forward into next year and everything else.
So was that the overall intent, was to create like an actual co-ed division for this region?
Yeah, for sure. Once we got the women's division going and saw that there was enough interest on that side of things to get more women involved and to get women kind of consistently playing, it was always our intent to have a co-ed division. I think it's good for us because one, it gives them another role on these different teams, and two, it saves them from traveling for just one division. Now they have a full day of dodgeball, but they're not going all the way to New Orleans or wherever we're going. and it keeps them invested a little more, and it helps us keep growing both the co-ed division and the women's division too, if they know that they have more games to play. So as soon as we had the buy-in on the women's side, we always intended to have a co-ed division.
Right. Plus co-ed is just fun. It's like a staple. You have to have open and co-ed. You can't just have one or the other. And just from my own recollection, you probably announced it earlier, Kristy, but what co-ed team did you play for this division?
I played with Lone Star Syndicate.
Gotcha. Okay, cool. Cool. Well, let's go ahead and just dive right in. We can start with you, Joseph, because you're kind of silent for a little bit. What teams stood out the most from your perspective in the co-ed no-sting division?
Yeah, we had a lot of teams.
Yeah, other than you guys had 13.
13 teams, so it's the most games I think my guys have ever played. Standing out, we did pretty bad for co-ed no-sting, so everybody was beating the crap out of us. Echo, which was predominantly a West Coast team, and one of my team members that helped them out, they stood out. They were beating the crap out of us. I think I got hit by Joseph and Justin like at the same time, like both in the same spot on the chest. It was just so fast. I'm trying to think. There's Outsiders. Syndicate did really well.
Sorry, I have to. What's so funny, Chris?
Marie's flight just landed, so she's here.
Oh, look at that. Okay, well, get her plugged in.
Yes.
That's awesome. All right, sorry, Joseph. You were saying though.
No, you're good. Yeah, I think the Syndicate came in there. That's the first time I think for them to do that setup, and Cody actually played with them versus playing with the Outsiders group, because we also had I don't know if it was discussed in there. We also had it to where we could carry a full roster for just round 3, just because there was. There were some concerns or whatever, so we were able to carry a full roster. So we had a lot of guys to sit. I had at least 3 guys sitting on the sideline pretty much the whole time.
Whoa, that's a lot.
Like just swapping them in and out. So, but standing out, like I said, Syndicate stood out. Outsiders. Anthony had his own team going. I can't remember the name of it. Melee, I think. I don't know if anybody remember the day. He had a pretty good showing. Harper was I think it was like Harper, Jalen, and him. And then Corey was playing with the Cat 5 team. So there's everybody stood out. It was really good. It was the first time doing it like this. I think there was we had it set for like 20 rounds of play. I think we just missed the last like 5 or something. But I mean, it was a lot of dodgeball. So I give my hats off to everybody.
Yeah, I wanted to ask too, like new division, so new teams, right? Like that's.
I mean, potentially, I could have broken my team up in. I actually had 3 girls on my team, so potentially I could have broken my team up into 2 teams. I had enough people, but we wanted to stay together since they let us carry the roster. I think there was actually a couple teams that were in that situation where they could have broke up into a few. We could have doubled this almost. I don't know. We would have had enough time, but. Yeah. It was very interesting. We've never done this format before. We've never played co-ed, like that. This actual format of co-ed. We've always had Juana on or off our team at some point in time, and it's never affected us, or we've never treated her any different. It was just having to have people sit on the sidelines that we don't normally have. We've never been required just to have 2 females or anything like that, which wasn't a problem. We just had never practiced with them like that. We didn't really know what. We picked up Monique, which was new to this format, and then Kat from Caught Up as well. And she's got great hands. She was catching all kinds of stuff. We didn't know where anybody needed to sit, who needed to throw. Who I don't like to have people like Juana. Especially in no-sting, I think Juana, like you said, she whips it, Kristy, and she does a better job at doing that than I do. So I'd rather have her have a ball. So it's very. It was just a different format. We don't even play with no-sting that often. I just started playing in the no-sting league. But like I said, as far as standing out, all the teams stood out. It was a really great fun. There were no fights. It went off great.
Awesome. Before I forget, you mentioned, was it Juana? When we were talking about women's, was Kristy? You mentioned somebody, and then Joseph was going to go into like a story about co-ed.
Oh, neat. Yeah. We're playing Hitman's co-ed team, and we all got bumped out. She was the last one in, and she actually took out the entire team except for one guy.
Nice.
What is it? Jarrett? I can't remember his whole name. I think we just call him Romo. It's out of nowhere. She just started throwing the ball, and she was catching everybody on the foot. It was really, uplifting kind of thing. I remember she just surprised the crap out of everybody because she came in there she didn't want to no, I want the best players in there. And they were like, no, you need to get in and play. And then she went out there and did that. And it was just and then she was really tired after that. She had to go eat. This is too much. And I was just okay, because she disappeared for a whole round. Where did she go? But she did really good. I mean, she was carrying. I got hit in the eye by Harper. He actually gave me I'll put this out there. He gave me a black eye. I caught one of the nosing balls right in the face. I blinked and it was just bam, right there. And I remember looking to the side and she was on the sideline, just I don't want to play like that. I was just I go, it's fine, just keep going. Just walk off the court. But she was great to have out there. Big surprise. We've seen her come to all the other events and things. She's always taking pictures and stuff. I think I met her the first time she came out, and we had a bunch of little kids in the background that were for, I guess, the daycare that was kind of going on at the rec center. And she kind of helped me corral the kids to the side because they kept interfering with the practice, and we played with the kids or whatever. So she's been pretty good. So I hope she comes back. I know she's in the military kind of thing, getting deployed out, I think, as well, kind of like Eli. So I don't know what the future holds for her, but I hope she does come back.
For sure. Well, she sounds like an awesome person and a great player if she can take on 4 or 5 people at once. That's very cool. Kristy, how about you? What teams did you notice from your perspective that I don't want to say improved because it doesn't really count, but that just stood out?
I mean, honestly, this is a hard question to answer, only because, and I know Vaughn and I actually spoke about this during it, we felt like No Sting went off, co-ed went off as kind of chill. Everybody was kind of chill because really most of these teams were never teams before, and they probably won't be teams after. Because of the roster, because most of these guys put themselves together for open, and their open No Sting, they weren't necessarily prepared to take us women on, so their rosters were too big. So people were splitting off left and right from their normal teams and forming just hodgepodge teams and then taking on women. And so it's hard to say what everything was because there were so many, but the teams that I saw do well are the ones that placed, obviously. Stingers did good. Outsiders did good.
Melee looked like they did pretty good, especially if they took on Echo.
Exactly. And Echo was fantastic, obviously. Melee, I was really proud of them. I mean, they did really good. So, like I said, it was a different tournament, which was fun because it was definitely out of everybody's comfort zone. It was not teams that we're used to seeing. There were teams that were made up of players from both New Orleans with a mixture of Dallas-Fort Worth players. And so it was unique tournament.
Nice. Very cool. Yeah, it makes sense. I mean, if you're doing co-ed division for the first time and you're trying to figure out what you're going to do with your excess male players or how you're going to fit in with that new dynamic of adding female players to the mix, and it changes everything. So that's kind of cool. How about you, Vaughn? What did you notice from your perspective?
Yeah, like Kristy was saying, the tone whenever co-ed started kind of dropped a little bit as people were trying to figure out these new teams. Outlaws split into 2 teams, Melee and Nitrogen, and a lot of these teams don't have any experience playing co-ed. Outsiders does, because we've always played with Kathy and Marie in foam tournaments or at nationals or whatever it is. Echo obviously has a lot of experience in co-ed, but most of these teams don't. So the energy level in the gym really kind of dropped during round robin as everyone was figuring it out, working out all the kinks, and then it kind of picked up again once bracket play started. But as far as teams that stood out, Outsiders, Echo, and Melee, Stingers did really well because they're predominantly.
Here's a playlist you might like. Best of Library from Amazon Music.
Wait, is that Alexa? Oh man, we're getting everybody back. Marie's back. Alexa's back. That's awesome.
I don't know what. Oh, I said the team name Echo, and that's what triggered it.
Oh, she's like, wait, what? Oh man. But you're saying so like the tone kind of changed. Like, so was it more fun at least, or?
Yeah, it was definitely fun, and I didn't see anyone that looked kind of sour about having co-ed. Everyone seemed, everyone was trying to work it out and figure out how to play, but I didn't see anyone that was kind of like, we don't want to play co-ed. We'd rather just go back to open, or anything like that. I think everyone really enjoyed it, and as we move into next season, people will start, building actual co-ed teams, and
right.
Syndicate actually played really well too. They stood out. Cody and Carlos and George from Outlaws were all on that team. Kristy and Jen, and then Stephanie Parker, who she mentioned earlier in her third day of dodgeball. But yeah, I think as we move into next season, people will start building actual co-ed teams, and it'll be more competitive, and people will start to just kind of figure things out a little more.
Awesome. Yeah, you kind of started to answer this question, but I do want to go back to it. And obviously, this didn't impact you guys at all. I mean, you guys look like you had a really strong showing. Even going up against Melee twice, you said it was just like you already had that consistency figured out, pretty much, or?
Yeah, we've always played. Joe and Kathy are married, and Marie and I are dating, and so we've just had a lot of time to build that chemistry and build a strategy and figure out how to play together, who does what, whatever it is. So I think we definitely had kind of a head start compared to all these other teams. So
versus like Joseph, who's got to figure out how to rotate three guys. I've been there. Ironically enough, I've been there before.
Right. Yeah.
And we won, but it's like two teams played. But it's a chore. Like it's enough to even replace two guys, let alone three. So for the teams that such as yourself you guys didn't have to do that. You're already like, okay, cool. It's just like you're kind of already adjusting to another mode that you're used to. Makes sense. What and maybe you can start this one, Joseph. Kind of got into the teams a little bit, but any players that really stood out that were worth mentioning that we might not have talked about already? Mostly for the co-ed division, I think, because it kind of bleeds into.
I'm thinking co-ed. I mean, Anthony Miller, Jonathan Harper, they were both, just throwing the balls, everything I saw. I mean, it's the same guys. I don't recall the Stingers team. I don't remember how well they did or didn't do. I'm not entirely sure if we played them. I think there was like one or two teams we didn't actually play, but yeah, I think we've already mentioned everybody that was like doing really well that I can think of. Like I said, just from me playing in the actual round, I'm just trying to Justin. I think Justin and Harper, the two that hit me the hardest. So I was like, those stand out with me.
They're gonna remember. You're gonna remember them a little bit more.
Yeah, it's like still for me. My eyes still it's like the eyelids all black. So I was just like, I'm just trying to remember. It's like it was a fun thing. It wasn't like anything like that I came out. I remember playing everybody. I don't remember anything being like, oh my gosh, it was crazy. But we didn't go very far. So I didn't, we kind of, once I was done, I started cleaning.
Right.
the venue cleaned up. So it was fun though. It was a lot of fun.
Gotcha.
Yeah, Stingers did well. I think that's what I was saying before I was interrupted by Alexa. That like no Sting is their game. They're a trampoline team, or at least previously they have been. So that's what they've always played is no Sting, and even working in the women, they actually did really well. They actually knocked us off in round robin. They were, I'm pretty sure, our only loss in round robin. But yeah, they did great in the nose thing.
I will say the Louisiana teams, the ones that had predominant Louisiana players, they always do well in nose thing. That's what I think they predominantly play over there. So like they whip that ball, they throw it. They were always doing pretty good.
That's their main ball. Yeah, like I follow them on Instagram, or at least a New Orleans league, and they definitely seem no sting predominant or dominant. How about you, Kristy? What about from your perspective?
I mean, the only thing I really have to say about co-ed is that I'm just really proud of all the men, because when we're trying to bring in these females to play, it's important that they don't feel disrespected in any way. And I'm just so proud that all the men of the South, from Florida to Dodgeball, like all of them, they all took women from all over, and these women all reported having a great time, which meant that these guys were supportive and inclusive and were doing nothing but being encouraging and giving them strategy advice. But most importantly, they didn't feel like they were a burden on the men, and they felt a part of it. And that's huge, because if we're going to try to build this, we need that. And so I'm really glad that all the men, didn't suck. They were great.
They weren't D-bags.
They weren't. They were great.
Good. Very cool. This next question, I guess, can go to Marie. Marie, what was your perception of no sting since you're here?
Yeah, I made it. I think I share a lot of the same opinions. I think by the time, and I don't know if you guys talked about this or not, but by the time no sting came around, I think everybody was a little tired, not just from playing the first round of stuff, which again, the women aren't used to playing the 2 rounds, but also because it was so hot in the gym. I think it kind of drained stuff out of everybody. So then also we were playing another round. And I think that part of that also contributed to the chillness of it. I think I saw several teams that were playing women in like key positions. It wasn't just that they were making them hand off the balls or whatever. There were some teams that were playing women in the corner and letting them take predominant throws. And it was kind of cool to see how everyone came together and put it together. It was a little bit of a different dynamic in that some teams were able to keep, like Joseph said, all of their players. And that's a unique thing. It's not going to happen again.
Right.
But, I think that was interesting. And then some chose to go ahead and split off and develop their own teams. So it's kind of a mix of existing teams versus new teams, or kind of hodgepodge teams or whatever. But it worked out, and I think it kind of went along with everything else we did this season, which was just trying to make it work and grow. And we did. I think we had so many players, so many teams. We were chatting about it afterwards and said, remembering back to maybe last year or even 2 years ago, and 6 teams showing up to certain rounds and stuff, and we had, what was the final count? 13
for no sting.
13 for no sting, right?
That's awesome.
It was really cool to kind of see that. And then we counted 35 women or something for just women, and we thought we weren't even sure we were going to be able to get 4 teams of 4 in the first round. So I think it was overall just a celebration, right? And it was fun. We had the Echo team come out and play, and we had fun playing them. I know they just were another competitive team for us all to play against, right? So I think it was kind of cool to have just round 3 turned out really cool.
That's awesome. It's kind of like a culminating event, like working from, as you said, just trying to get 4, just to get teams of 4 females, to moving on to 5, to moving on to round 3, to we have a co-ed division now. So that's pretty awesome that this is happening, and it's all moving forward. Just along with everything else that's going on in dodgeball, it's great that a lot of progress is just being made on all kinds of ends and fronts. I think that, it sounds like no sting. I don't want to say not much happened, but I'm curious to see what teams actually stick around and come back, what teams form as a result of this going into the future, next year and whatnot. But unless you guys have anything else to say about No Sting, we can kind of go into Showdown real quick. And Vaughn, I'm assuming you'll probably take lead since you can speak to that a little bit more, unless you guys saw it for yourselves. But was it like 2 matches left, or how'd that play out?
Yeah, it was. Yeah, I think it was just the 2. At least I only saw 2. They might have played 1 earlier, but so Mikey Hashimoto, who ended up winning the whole thing, he played against Cody Stidham, who's also on Outsiders. So we had a 2 out of 3 shot of winning Showdown as Outsiders go. So he went up against Cody, and he was just on. Like, he was on target. He had like a great just over the head catch on Cody, which is, I mean, everyone knows Cody Stidham doesn't throw lightly. He just wailed a ball at Mikey, and Mikey just stuck it right above his head. So he ended up winning against Cody, and then he went on to play Anthony. And Anthony's a tough guy to figure out. He's he has a lot of experience, and he's been doing this a long time. So I gave him a little bit of advice, and I just said, wait him out. He's gonna wait for you to make a move. Just see what he does and then go. And he ended up 3-0 in Anthony, and he did a phenomenal job. So to win something like that at 18, and all the kind of young stars are coming through in Showdown. Mike Mickey winning in the East, and now Mikey winning down here in the South.
Oh man.
It's gonna be a good show at Nationals.
I'm already gonna be biased to whoever's older. Just I don't care what region it is. All the older guys win. That's pretty cool. And when you said over the head, I was like, I don't understand like how, but it was just like there you go.
Right.
Yeah, thank you. Like a receiver catch. I don't know why I overcomplicated it mentally, but I was like, over the head catch. What?
That would have been cooler if he did catch it like this.
I've seen everything. I've seen the weirdest stuff. So that's where my mind goes. Well, cool. Well, best of luck to Elijah. And I mean, like I said, I'm just gonna go for the older guy. I'll just say it now. I don't even feel bad about it. The guy's got 10, 15 years ahead of him. He's also didn't he make like alternate for Team USA also?
So Elijah did, but it was Mikey who won Showdown.
Oh, my mistake. Well, still.
Yeah, the brothers Hashimoto.
Oh, that's why. Okay, cool. Dang.
Yeah.
So one's 16, one's 18 then?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Wow. That's incredible.
Yeah, Elijah will be 17 in August.
Jeez. Well, that's very cool. Well, I think that's all I got. I did want to go into the last part, and that's just shout outs. And we can start with you, Joseph. Is there anybody that you wanted to shout out prior that we haven't talked about that was just either really awesome player, really awesome spectator, supporter, ref? Kind of like the gratitude portion, I guess.
A few people. For Dodgetronic, Boo, he's always he wasn't as loud as he was in round 2, but he's still always a competitor. Outsiders, Eli, Mikey, Jake, Scott, the whole team, Vaughn, they all played good. Joe, they played really hard. They won that round fair and square. There's nothing you can take away. All the games were clean. This was actually a good round. I don't remember a whole lot of people worried about any weird calls or anything like that. Everything went good. Just Carbon just for sticking it out, playing together, getting their teams together. The guys that came down from the West Coast, it was good to have them come down. Any exposure we can get is always great with anybody. And then Voodoo, Derek and Fern, they always do great. Cat 5, Alex, Deke, and Clay, and always Frenchie. Frenchie's, I think he did the live stream for us again, and he's just getting better and better every time I see him. So. If there's anybody I forgot, I'm sorry, but it was a really great tournament. Round 3, it went really well.
Awesome. Well, shout out to you, man, for saying you took notes. That made me really happy. I was like, yes, people are taking notes. This is great. Well, cool. How about you, Kristy?
I want to give a special shout out to Asian Alicia. She knows that name. It's fine.
Okay. I was like,
and because I don't know how to say her last name, and that's what we call her. So,
right.
Asian Alicia and Marissa, both because they were girls who've never done elite. Well, I don't know about Marissa, and they stepped up and captained teams of girls that they did not know about a week before we're supposed to go. And I think that's definitely them stepping out of their comfort zone possibly. And so big shout out to them. Kat from Caught Up had a really great improvement from round 2. Michelle Schmegner, I'd like to say shout out to her. Her team didn't do as well, but she as a player has really improved. So she deserves some recognition. Also kind of want to shout out to Alicia Ellis and Becca May. I don't think that the women's division would have grown so much without their help. They were 2 very instrumental, but behind the scenes people in recruiting and encouraging women to come out. And Marie, I did not do yours, so you can do yours in a minute yet. And really, again, I just like to say it was great. I'm proud that the South has grown so much. These guys, I appreciate their help. They coached, they gave advice, they accepted us, they included us, which is important. And I'm really glad of where we've come in just one season.
Yeah, just talking to you guys and kind of recapping it from out here, it just seems like there's been a lot of development. It all looks really positive for the future. So it's exciting. How about Yvonne?
Yeah, I was going to say first, shout out to Jeremy Stevens. That gym that he found was great, aside from the AC and it being hot, but space-wise, it was fantastic. We had a ton of room. We had 4 courts plus enough room for spectators and everything else. So it was a really great location, and I know that he put quite a bit of effort into finding a suitable place for us. All the Fort Worth girls, Kristy, Jen, Alicia, for getting enough girls for, to fill out some of the other teams and to bring on a couple new teams. That was really great. And it's, that's key to us growing. So as long as y'all are still putting in the work, we're going to keep growing, and it's what we need. So, let's see, Echo coming out. It was great to have them, and it was great to play against, 1, a new team, and 2, a very talented new team. I don't know what their expectation was coming out here. Like, I don't know if they, just came out expecting kind of run through everyone. But I was kind of glad to see that they didn't, and maybe it gave us a little bit more legitimacy. But it was good to have them, and they were good sports about everything. They didn't get, they didn't really get too pissed off. It didn't seem whenever they got knocked out or whatever. So they were good sports about the whole thing, and it was really good to have them. So
awesome. So they're good ambassadors for the West.
Yeah, for sure. They did a great job. They didn't, I think the perception of the West in a lot of the other regions, the South, and I've heard it from some North players, is that it's a little elitist and stuff like that. But they didn't act that way at all. Like I said, Pine was doing a great job kind of coaching and strategizing with Cat 5, and everyone was just very nice, and they were really good ambassadors for the West, and kind of maybe helped shake a little bit of that douchey perception that they sometimes get. So awesome.
That's always good to hear. We need more ambassadors to the sport in general, and people to support what we have going, for sure. And Marie, thanks for hopping in last minute and answering one of the questions. Did you have any shout outs that you wanted to throw out there?
It was good to see Maria back from New Orleans. She didn't make it to round 2, so I was glad to see her. We had Amber join us. She's kind of floating out here in the South, but is normally from LA, and so we don't see her very often. It was kind of cool to have her come out. The other thing I'd like to make a shout out for is all the new people who joined in. Like Kristy said, there was a lot of people who joined in last minute, and like within the week of it starting, and just to kind of help fill out some teams. And I think I've said it in the last couple of podcasts too, but kind of everybody's flexibility. I really appreciate that. On the women's side, forming kind of random teams, or like I said, putting these teams together, or it wasn't sure if we were going to do teams of 5 or teams of 6 until that week before. So it was kind of like everybody was wondering what was going on, or what were we going to do, and waiting for decisions to be made. So, and then the same thing with co-ed, no sting, it wasn't quite sure if we were going to be able to get there based on the venue until a week or two in advance. And so I think I really appreciate everyone in the South being flexible and willing to kind of come together and work together for the betterment of the sport and for our region. I think that was pretty cool.
Awesome. Very cool. Well, it's going to be really interesting seeing, what the future holds. Really curious to see how everybody does come nationals. I know that's one West Coast West team incursion coming in, but yeah, just like I was telling the team GOAT, I'm just nationals is going to be exciting on so many levels, not just from a player standpoint for me, but yeah, I think we're good. I really appreciate you guys coming on again, especially some of the returning guys coming in from the previous rounds. It's been a blast getting to know you guys a little bit more. But yeah, I think that's all I got. So I think we can just leave it at that. So thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks.
So that was the final South round 3 recap, and it feels like it's only yesterday that we concluded round 2. It's crazy to think as I wrap up another region that we've got West's final tournament coming up just next weekend, and just how fast all has flown by. It's been a crazy 2018, but a very awesome and optimistic one. Also, it is with sincere gratitude that I want to thank Vaughn Kelly, Joseph Chincarini, Kristy Stephens, and Marie Garrig for joining last minute. But thank you so much, guys, for hopping on. Also, for not returning from this particular episode, thank you, Joe Martinez, for your insight and input for rounds 1 and 2. I really had no clue who to reach out to prior to the first recap, and I wasn't fully convinced I'd actually be able to cover this region. So the fact that you guys stepped up, the fact that some people were willing to point me in the right direction to even discover Vaughn Kelly exists was super awesome. And all of this is just, like I said in the interview, just one more reason to look forward to nationals. So huge congratulations to Weapons of Mass Destruction for taking women's division and helping lead the way for future competition. And congratulations to Outsiders for taking first this round overall. That's awesome. And again, excited to see how you guys turn out against the nation. I'm really looking forward to interviewing the Outsiders team, and that's where we'll see Joe Martinez again, and along with everybody else. And last but not least, thank you everyone for your support and for your questions. It just makes this more interactive. And again, I cannot possibly think of all of the questions myself. So please keep sending them in. It's just much appreciated, and I hope you can see that we incorporate them almost immediately. So on that note, send feedback anytime. And depending on when this episode drops, have a great rest of your week, great evening, and we'll catch you next time.
And here we go again.
Yeah, this got to be the paramedics. I'm still keeping this. This is going in the very end, in the bloopers.
I actually
Oh my God!
Yeah.
And now, just to end up in misery.
Mm-hmm.
Go home when she was.
Okay, I've had my fun.